Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Kingdom and its Stories. We're delighted to have you with us today, whether you're listening and or watching. Welcome. I want to introduce our guest on this particular broadcast. Her name is Lesley Russell. And Lesley, we're delighted to have you with us. And thank you for joining us. Lesley is involved in a very unique ministry of education based on not as a layover to a biblical worldview, but as the foundation of education. And I think too many times, when we talk about Christian education, we talk about Christian education kind of as a layover to an existing secular worldview. But Lesley has been involved in the development of a program of an education that is based on a biblical worldview. And Lesley, we're delighted to have you with us today. So thank you for joining us. And before you say anything, I'm going to have you introduce yourself in a second. I just want to remind people that the purpose of this broadcast is to help those who are listening to examine their own lives and ask the question, how can I better be Jesus' hands and feet in my world?
Mm.
And so, Lesley, we're delighted to have you with us. Give us the elevator speech and help us to understand who Lesley Russell is.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so honored to be on it. And thank you for even providing this to your listeners and to viewers. I think that it's so essential that we hear stories and testimonies. They have such a place of significance in our lives. And so what I get to do is God has created me to be a reformer. And so I am so blessed to be able to go in and to reform education, to bring the creator of the universe into the center of it all. And am so honored to be able to offer it and to really spread it globally to people all around the world. And so, what I do is I help people launch K-12 schools. Um, Either it's out of their home, in a church, an office building. We have CEOs who've started campuses with us, pastors who've started campuses with us, former teachers of the public school or private school. We have college professors and doctors who have all started schools. And we come alongside them, we shepherd them, we guide them, we mentor them, and helping them be able to do that. And we have a whole pedagogy that goes alongside of it. And it's called Revelate Learning. And Revelate Learning is bringing the author of life, bringing Jesus, as you had described, into the center of it. And what does it look like to have God in the center of education? So we have systems and processes and operations. We've done it over almost like 15 years in different forms with our former program and our current program, which is really equipping you to be able to launch these schools and join this movement of reforming education.
Mm, wow. Well, that tells us what you do, but who are you? How do, how,
Who
yeah.
am I, Leslie? So I am so blessed to be married to my husband for over 30 years. I'm a mom of four adult children, ages 20, 23, 25, and 27, three daughters and a son. And I absolutely my passion is I see the significance of education in the lives of family because there can't be a dichotomy between family, what you're doing in the family, and what your children are doing 40% of their waking hours. And so I love the fact that I get to walk out in nature, creation, that through the lens, like I'm looking through my glasses right now, through this lens, to see the hand of God in all things. And I really want the next generation of children to be able to grow up and to see that and to grow up with a worldview of seeing how loved they are, that they're God's masterpiece. So for this stage of my life where I am, I'm just like thrilled that I get to do it. I've been able to educate my own children that way. They've graduated from our hybrid homeschool program, and I see the fruit of it in their lives. One is married, one's about to get married. They all serve Jesus in different ways in the marketplace, at church. just in their essence of who they are. And legacy, and I'm going to be talking a lot with the stories today about legacy. And we want to leave a legacy to our children, to our grandchildren, to our great grandchildren, our children's children's children, till we all get up into heaven without one left behind, to be a lover of Christ and to be a lover of people. And education plays a very significant role in that.
Okay, well, let's say that I'm a pastor and I'm interested in providing an alternative to the public education system in my community. And I come to you and I say, Lesley, how how can I get started with this? What are your ideas? How would you counsel me?
um, I would be able to immediately determine the best way for the program to be set up in that church. Because every church is different. You have churches with 15 classrooms and you have churches like maybe with 4 classrooms. So regardless of the size of the church, whether it's 4 classrooms or 15, I'm just thrilled that the pastor is even at this place because really there is it's essential that pastors do have this viewpoint that they see their church as an ark and that this building that has been given and blessed to them by God is for his children during the week as much as it is for youth group on Wednesday night and church on Sunday. So I will be able to walk along that pastor and his team and determine the best way for them to set up a school in that location to fit them perfectly and to come alongside of them and shepherding them and being proactive instead of reactive to mitigate things, to be able to set things up legally, to be able to set things up then academically, be able to set things up with a kingdom educational system. And we shepherd them all the way through it. They join our community, they're a part of it. They'll be able to immediately be in contact with other campuses and locations across the country and even eventually around the world. I'm already speaking with teachers and school organizers in India, in South Korea, part of a global network. I'm going to be going to South Korea for the second time this November for the Billion Soul Harvest that has an educational component to it. So it's really a movement, and they get to join in that movement and be shepherded and guided through it and not have to reinvent the wheel because I've homeschooled over 20 years and then have been doing this for close to 15 years.
Okay, so out of in those 15 years, how many schools or campuses have you been involved in helping to get started?
Yeah, so one launched right out of my own home. We had 65 to 70 children in my own home, my modest home of like 2,100 square feet. Then my
You
husband and
you,
I.
you are a brave lady.
Yes, I taught, I had my master's in education. I'm currently getting my doctorate, my PhD in organizational leadership, but we launched out of our home. I taught all of the language arts classes and then got trained by Lego Land and taught robotics classes. And it was an amazing year. And so my husband and I launched Next Generation Ministries out of our home. We started our first campus that grew to 1,000 students. And I was the principal, I was the founder and also the director and the main like principal for that. And then we launched campuses all throughout Southern California in Orange County, San Diego County, Riverside County, and then went bounced out of state into Idaho. And that was our former program that my own children graduated from. And then we got a prophetic word that we were going to be a global movement and we were going to impact education globally, helping in the reformation of it, and that we were going to be partnering with God in it, the Holy Spirit, in bringing kingdom education. So we restructured ourselves and launched Equip 2:10 that's based on Ephesians 2:10 for we are God's masterpiece, created new in Christ Jesus for the good works that he prepared long ago. And it's a very scalable and replicable model. We launched that 3 years ago. And we have 7 locations right now, more that are launching this fall. And then we have a whole new model with Revelate Learning where we can take an existing Christian school that's been in operation or any co-op or any pod or any entity and come alongside and shepherd them where they are today and bringing the ethos of Revelate Learning, which I can get more into. But so we can help you launch a brand new one. We can come alongside of you if you already have been, it's already been in existence as a consultant. our whole purpose of why we do what we do is to be a blessing and to spread revelate learning. And revelate is a word that the Lord gave me, which means to view education through the lens of the Creator, for Him to reveal the meaning of math, science, English, history. And
Hmm.
it's a really special word. He really, in my time in writing my book this past year, my book is titled Revelations from God in Education, Learning Through the Lens of the Creator. He gave me the word revelate because I'm like, the word educate just has such a secular, humanistic
Hmm. Hmm.
meaning and connotation when you look at our whole educational system. It's the foundation of it. So he really dropped into my journaling the word revelate, and the last person to use it was Martin Luther in the 1500s. And so when
Hmm.
I did a research and I found the writings with him using it, he said that revelate actually means to reveal the things of God. And I saw it used in that content. So when we look at creation, when we look at math, science, English, history, we're to look at it through the lens of God and not these singular subjects, which really became singular subjects in the early 1800s, in the age of enlightenment, late 1700s, early 1800s, in the age of enlightenment, where we saw the transition of a of education being through the lens of God, and then it shifting into the Enlightenment period with humanism and secularism and coming into that time period. But there's so many stories with our existing campuses of really of legacy where we have testimonials from parents and grandparents. We have grandparents that are reaching out to us saying that they have been praying for their own children, meaning children in their late 20s, in their 30s, late 30s, early 40s, praying for their own children at that age to come to know Jesus. And through their grandchildren who are in our program, that the children, the grandma's grandchildren are bringing the parents to know Jesus. The
Wow.
parents are
Wow.
getting baptized. They put their children into our program. They haven't been churchgoers themselves for like decades, left the church, but put their children into our program. And through their children, they are now coming back to church, getting baptized, and rededicating their lives to Jesus. And the grandmas and the grandfathers are contacting us saying that their prayers have been answered, which
Praise
is
the
incredible
Lord.
because that is like, that's legacy right there.
Amen. Leslie, let me take this opportunity before you tell us some stories, some more stories, to do a station break. And I just want to remind people that they're listening to the Kingdom and its stories. And we have the privilege of having Lesley Russell with us today, who's telling us about a program that the Lord has allowed her to develop and her family, of using God's revelation to reveal the truth of all the academic disciplines and the life disciplines of how to live, and doing that through an educational program. And this interview, as well as all the others that we do, is for the purpose of causing our viewers and listeners to ask the question, Lord, how can you use this example to stimulate me in my thinking about how I could better be Jesus' hands and feet in my world? And so, Lesley, thank you for joining us. Tell us some stories that sort of unpack and give a real illustration of what the results are of this effort that God has led you to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the stories from one of our campuses is there was a mom and dad, and
There was a what?
there was a mother and a father.
Okay.
And they put their little girl in one of our locations. And so just to kind of review, like I'm just kind of do a recap. We have schools in New York and Tennessee and North Carolina, one that's going to be starting in Texas, Washington, and then in California, in Southern California. And then again, just to reiterate, we come alongside you and help you launch your program that you want to launch wherever that is. So we have a couple different models, but the big our overarching goal is that we want to spread revelate learning, and revelate just simply means is to learn through the lens of the creator. And we even have a virtual high school that's accredited by a Christian university, where I'm an adjunct professor. And so, anyways, with all of that, we have like these really amazing testimonials from this past year. So one of them is a mom and dad put their little daughter into one of our programs, and they weren't really actively being active in their own faith. The father was more of like what he described himself as being like a humanist, like very like humanistic outlook on life, very secular, humanistic, as he would describe himself. And so their little daughter would come home and just talk about Jesus, and she was so excited all the time. And he was listening to a particular podcast that he would listen to, and it was a very what he would describe as a humanistic view of the world.
Hmm.
And that was like his only lens of like knowing about like his even purpose on this earth. And he was just really listening to it one day, and he just took the headphones out of his ears, and he couldn't even listen to it anymore. And so I wrote down what his testimonial was, and he says, "All that makes sense to me anymore is the life of my daughter." So all that makes sense is her life. He goes, "I don't even understand life, but what makes sense is her life." And he was just seeing her joy and her
Hmm.
relationship with Jesus. And so through his little girl, the mom and dad were able to they were able to grow in their relationship and start going to church and bringing Jesus, the love of Jesus, because they saw it in their little girl. Because that's like what we open up in worship and praise, and we see Jesus, we see God in all things. And some of our schools are actually on farm locations, so you know the animals that are there, and we were very intentional with bringing science and creation into it, that they see that through that revelation, and the joy through their own children. So it's really exciting, and I have more examples. So if you want to comment on that, or I can
No,
keep going
no,
on to
keep
the next
going.
story. And so another one was the one that I had alluded to earlier, with a grandmother literally calling the church and speaking to our director, who is the children's pastor, and just saying, "I have been praying for years for my children." And these are adult children, you know, older children, and, you know, who have their children, to come back to the church, and to come back to their love of Christ. You know, because I don't know if you know the statistic, and it just grieves me to even say it, but 80% of your graduating high school seniors who are raised in Christian families leave the church. They leave the church. I feel a lot of it is the dichotomy between their education and their education, where they spend 40% of their waking hours, and you know, just going to church on Sunday and youth group during the week does not override the secular education of what they're being exposed to, and the dichotomy of the worldview that they're like literally seeing them through. And I always do this when I train teachers, because I train teachers nationally and administrators in the wisdom of man versus the wisdom of Christ. Because God says in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and chapter 2 that it's a wisdom of Christ is the only true wisdom. So this is kind of like a visual, because I'm a teacher at heart. This is like the lens of the world of man's wisdom that we see and are educated in, and then compared to the wisdom and revelation of Christ. And so, unfortunately, we see that where we see 75 to 80% leave the Christian faith. So, this particular grandmother was praying for her adult children in their early 30s who had their own children to come to know Jesus. And through their children in our program, the parents were so overwhelmed and amazed at seeing the joy that had returned to their family through their own children and their relationship and what our program Equip 210 offered and provided. And the whole family ended up going to church where our Equip 210 program is located and being baptized by the pastor of that church and rededicating their lives to Jesus. And so the grandmother was just like, my prayers have been answered and just want to thank you for what Equip 210 did. And then we have,
Before you go on, Lesley, you've used that word equip 210
mhm.
recently a couple of times. Explain that. What is equip 210?
Absolutely. So Equip 210 um, is our nonprofit ministry. It's a church on the Mountain of Education, and we launch actual campuses, Equip 210 campuses. We also have an Equip 210 virtual high school program that any existing co-op or existing high school program wants to plug into. The 210 stands for Ephesians 2:10, for we are God's masterpiece, created
Hmm.
new in Christ Jesus for the good works that he prepared long ago. And so, in addition to that, the ethos, what we train teachers on nationally at our Equip to 10 campuses, that we train teachers on at co-ops and pods and micro schools, we train them on the ethos of Revelate learning. And Revelate, I explain in my book that will be available this September. But what we train on is how do you teach history through Revelate learning? How do you teach science and math and the electives through that lens? And that lens was really the lens that we educated children through centuries ago. It's really only since the Age of Enlightenment that we have singularly pulled out the subjects. But there was the trivium. That's a long, like I can kind of like get into the whole historical component of it. It's like, how did we get here? But sometimes we look at education today and think it's always been this way, but it hasn't. And so we're returning it to the way it should be, which is having the author of life in his own story. Um,
Reveal his story to us.
Reveal his story to it. So these testimonies at our Equip 210 campuses, I'm looking at I visited our New York campus, and one of the teachers there made this beautiful card with Ephesians 2:10, and all the
Hmm.
students signed the card, and it says, "Thank you, Miss Lesley, for coming to visit us at our Equip 210 New York campus. We love you so much in his loving service. Parents, students, teachers, and volunteers, Hopewell Junction, New York." So this is one of our locations. Um, so, if a pastor is listening, or as I said, we have teachers who started campuses with us that we've come alongside, entrepreneurs, college professors, full-time doctors during the day, and then they're pastors on the weekend that have started campuses. And then we have the full virtual program that anyone can plug into. Reach out to us because this is our calling and this is what we want to do. So, another testimony was there was a dad who there was a dad and his daughter, and I guess that they were traveling somewhere, and he got a flat tire and was very stressed out about that and kind of alongside the road trying to change it. And this is the dad telling the story, just very stressed out about it. And his daughter, who was at our program, was really comforting him and telling him that God was in this moment, that it was going to be okay, and that they, prayed to Jesus for somebody to come and like help them and to be there, and God's provision and how it all worked out and how his little girl was comforting him. Normally, it's like the parent comforting the child, right? Like it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But he was very stressed out about it and anxious and just kind of like, as he describes, grumbling about it. But she was like the one that was comforting him because we teach that. And because, children have all different anxieties and things that they come into like a possible um, setting, and they come in and they're like that's just evaporates. If they had it at another school or program, they come in and it's like a return to joy. They love coming, they love being there. It's not like they have to, they get to be there, they get to go, they get to come and do school with us, the hybrid education. We kind of are under that banner of alternative education. But even those who are listening, they have more of a traditional program and they're looking to really understand what's this Revelate learning all about and how can I bring this into my existing school? We train teachers and administrators on how to bring it into your existing establishment. And we really feel that mentoring parents is equally as important as um, teachers being able um, to disciple the children who come in. And that's our pedagogy
Leslie,
as well.
thank you so much. We're out of time.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today. God bless you and the ministry to which He has called you. God
I
bless.
so happy to be on. Thank you, everyone. God bless. And I'm sure they know where to find us, right? Equip210.com is like the best place to reach out to us and just leave us a message.
Thank you. God
Thank
bless.
you. Bye.
Bye bye.